The Opus, an exploration of legendary records and their ongoing legacy. Not just their history, but how this music continues to evolve. We're opening the vault on classic records upon re-release, delving into their inner workings and their lasting impact. Maybe you're a longtime fan and wants to go a little deeper. Maybe you're a first-time listener and you're curious to hear more. Either way, you're in the right place. Find us at Consequence of Sound or wherever you tune in to podcasts.
Consequence Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Merdith with, an interview series presented by WFPK, Independent Louisville, at WFPK.org. Consequence of Sound and the Consequence Podcast Network. Hey, take a second before we get started to hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening from right now. We put out multiple interviews every single week, and you can keep up on Spotify, on YouTube, Acast, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. I'm Kyle Merdith. Today my guest, Courtney Taylor-Taylor of the Dandy Warhols. Not only do they have a brand new record called Why You So Crazy, but it comes during their 25th anniversary. In fact, they're going to be taking the whole thing out on the road for a 25th anniversary tour. We'll head back to Portland in 1994 to see what was going on when the birth of the band happened. Then, of course, we'll get into the ins and outs of that brand new record, talk about the first two singles, Forever and Be All Right, a little connection to Bowie's Modern Love, and how, as the record's been called, a surrealist vision of an alternate reality. It's Kyle Merdith with the Dandy Warhols.
Hey, what's going on?
Well, let's start with the idea of the 25th anniversary tour. I don't know if it was just chance that it lined up with a new album or you guys did it like this, but I don't know, man, that's an amazing accomplishment. You know, most bands don't make it 5 years, 25 let alone. How much of that's been on your mind right now?
Yeah, well, I get asked about it constantly, so it's omnipresent truth that yes, those days were 25 years ago. And so I'm doing a lot of like, oh my God, that was 20 years ago.
I mean, I do that. I like doing that in interviews. I do a lot of interviews where I celebrate the big round numbers and we kind of get into them anyway because I'm a music nerd and I want to know all about that stuff anyway, but it's a nice time to time travel safely, I suppose. But
yeah, we did a lot of that one in New York, and I happen to be reading a book about New York in the 80s right now, where it was very bleak, and it still was in the end of the 90s. It was a really bleak place. So things like that are really fun to like. God, I haven't thought about that in a long time. The reality of all the different eras that we've been through, and the ups and the downs, and who we've met. Yeah, it's crazy, crazy.
Well, to look into 94 for a second at least, Portland 1994, like, it's just out of eyesight for maybe what was happening down the road in Seattle. Like, what comes to mind when you think of Portland in 1994?
Well, Armpit is the first thing that comes to mind, and it really was, and it was super artsy and fiercely still hippie in its politic. So I was in high school in the 80s, and I had friends that were in bands and were squatting downtown and still making it out over the hill to the first kind of suburb out, Cedar Hills, to go to high school, and they were squatters. It was so soft here. You could live on $100 a month. You could rent a room in someone's dilapidated old Victorian for probably $50 a month, and then you just have $50 to buy rice and beans and vegetables. And I mean, I knew people that were just living like that. It was amazing, and there was a lot of just weird styled people, self-styled people,
I mean, that's what I thought. It was the era of Let's Get Weird. Like, for an artist, that door was wide open.
Yeah, there were no politics involved in what style weirdo you were. You were just a weirdo, and hopefully you had a real cool look, and talked real cool and knew about artsy things and Man Ray or whatever, you knew who you were into Scorsese films, and you were just a fringer artsy person, and there were just a ton of them here, like a ton for the small size of the town, less than 500,000, to have such an intense fringer art scene kind of dominate the whole public. I mean, it was what certain things would be front page local news, certain art events or, building the skate park and having bands play it, indie bands on indie labels. It was front page news, or anything happening. And so it was really a special place, and it made for us, we were fully formed already, who we were and what we are, and we didn't really do a lot of growing in the public eye. We were pretty firmly ourselves in our tweaky thing. I just read a review of our record where one thing funny that he said is that after 20 of our new record, it's getting pretty great reviews. So, but after 25 years, they still seem to have no inkling of, or no reason to bother sounding like anybody but themselves, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I just thought, God, is that, that's really great. Is that really what we've just been doing the whole time? I guess so. I mean, I try to avoid current trends, but I never really we don't really try to, have a sound or anything sound like ourselves or anything like that, but.
I mean, I would say that, there is a dandy sound, and there's a lot of colors on that palette for what you've done with it, but... Right.
There's the,
Yeah, but and I'll end our journey in '94 right here when I was thinking, like, what you're saying with all of the, unique styles and everything that kind of came through the door, and matched with, what I remember a lot about the time was, the sarcasm and cynicism of that era. A lot of folks finally saw that, how they were being marketed to, and that sort of made its way into, like, that's how I see the Dandy Warhols beginning.
Grunge, pop grunge.
Yeah. That's how I start seeing how the Dandy Warhols kind of come in, because you do have that, the weird styles and the psychedelic and garage kind of flashbacks in the music. But you also, because of your lyrics, you really painted that pretty clearly a lot of times, that I see what you're doing to me, it's.
Oh, right. Yeah, actually I never thought about that. That is a good point, is that I think, those records, they are very of their time in the lyrical approach and content. They really describe the era, I think, pretty well, and the mentality of the era, whereas they don't really, they don't sound like Stone Temple Pilots or Chili Peppers or anything. They don't have a,
right.
a trendy sound of they're not idiosyncratic of their eras, but yeah, they sure do. The lyrical content. God, I never really think about my lyrical content as a what it is picture. I know that people think it's all about cynicism or have reduced it to that, but obviously not. There's a lot of, there's just a lot of self-crucifixion, I suppose, and harvesting of regrets.
As we move on to the new record, Why You So Crazy, does the album itself, does this new one find any moments to reference those years gone? And I'll ask in the context that some artists, I think it can always feel like you're always in competition with your past.
No, I never really do. We never had a moment of our past that produced that kind of effect where, because when Bohemian Like You, once that had already peaked and had been as huge as it was time for a new sound. Everybody was doing guitar rock 3 years after that thing came out. It was, it went from nobody doing vintage guitar rock to all these amazing bands. Were getting huge. The White Stripes and the Strokes and Jet and the Vines and great recording artists and great artists, and so it had become commercialized, and then all sorts of other bands start doing it and having one hit wondery sorts of bands doing it, or bands put together around one song to have that kind of sound, and it gets commercialized. So it was time to move on anyway, and that's sort of the nature of, I think, my view of music is, just is the sound cool, or is it, or not? Or does it sound like a bunch of other people's music that you're just imitating their overall sound, which to me, it makes it, I can't open my heart to that, just the sound itself. Before anyone opens their mouth and starts singing or relating stories or lyrics or perspective through language, the sound itself has to seem so breathtaking and fresh and beautiful and powerful to me that I will open my heart and listen to this person once they do open their mouth anyway.
Well, I hear a little bit of that on, on Forever. That was the first song that we heard from Why You So Crazy. And I talk about you all painting with some different colors. And maybe it's because once you tie music to a visual, like the music video, and I think, because there is a ghostly quality to what's going on musically in that song right there.
Mm-hmm.
One of the last times you were here in Louisville, you and I were talking about how with the birth of Spotify, it revealed songs that you previously didn't know were as popular with your fans. And I think the song was Sleep, specifically, that we were talking about.
Right.
And for me, Forever sort of has that lineage now. Like, oh, you guys like that? Oh, we can do that.
Right. What is Sleep, or what does Forever, what on earth does that sound like? I keep trying to, because it started out with the Dr. Dre string things, and then once it got the haunted, Pink Martini piano, it became sort of like Ghost Town, the Specials Ghost Town a little bit, and then the vocals are, I feel like they're just straight up Damon Albarn, Gorillaz era, but snottier delivery and texture, and just the sonic texture of them. We really worked the sound. So that, I love that one.
Yeah. Is that little...
The video turned out great, and it looks really cool, and I love that how it's just an absurd series of pretentious metaphors, but it just looks so cool. And I got the Pander brothers to kind of, I just give them walk them through the story, how I want it to look and feel, and then they just take it and go with it. They're these comic book illustrators that did early, they're kind of pioneers in the 90s modern comic book, The Dark Knight, Batman the Dark Knight. They did a lot of that. And so they become really cool filmmakers. So, it was great to get them for that video.
You brought up that little piano, and I was kind of wondering, between the first two singles and also talking about Be All Right, it seems like that little piano takes a bit of a starring role on this record, at least out of the gates, in a way that, I don't know if you've used that before, but I guess I've never noticed it in the same way before.
Yeah, I didn't really even think about it until Be All Right came out. And actually, the video, I was watching that and getting that 360 thing to work, and then I went, oh, right, the two piano songs came out first. So it actually just looks like that's our kind of our hook, is it's a big piano record, but I think that's the only piano on the record. Well, it also ends with On Dean, which is a solo piano masterpiece from 1918 that Hunter Nowak played, who I think he has a special on like CBS or something, or did maybe recently. And we were just smoking weed and drinking champagne and hanging out and having Thomas Lauderdale play. And Hunter is his boyfriend, and he sat down and started just laying out this amazing piece of music that is this Ravel piece, 1918, called On Dean. So that ends, it's a 6-minute surrealist piece, which was, in 1918, I think, they had been doing, surrealism in general was really, everyone was gung-ho. So you had super talents like Ravel doing it, because they didn't have, delays or echo chambers or anything like that back then. So if they wanted to produce psychedelic, trippy, opiated-sounding music, they had to do it with notes and textures and blurring notes together and swirling things around. And so, On Dean is an absolute, probably the greatest piano masterpiece I know of. So that we do have 3 piano pieces there.
What you're talking about, there's a line in the press release where I think it was you anyway, who, somebody at least calls this record a surrealist visions of an alternate reality. And, and when I look more at Be All Right, too, because first off, to say the words "be all right" and then have a line that references 1,000 points of light in it, like it's hard not to look at some possible political undertones or overtones. I suppose, however you look at that, right there.
Yes, it did. It did from the first formation of it, the first inception of it, to the final done written lyrics rehammered over. It definitely went that direction. You can't help but want to put out some kind of a positive message, right?
You've taken it back though. I mean, you took that and you did the flip. You made the you made the big small. You made it personal. I mean, 1,000 points of light. Suddenly, I don't remember, was that Reagan or Bush? I do forget about that one, but but you've taken it back to this romantic spot, as I can hear it on this song, and that's always a great trick.
Yeah, that's Fathead. Fathead wrote that. Yeah, he came up with that whole blast of lyrics in this one go. I think he recorded it on his laptop on a 14-hour airplane trip on GarageBand, and then, we took that one from there. So that piano is played in GarageBand on his laptop.
Oh, wow.
You get a lot of... Yep, you can fly a lot, and you can write a lot of songs. You got a lot of time for songwriting.
How does the Church of Bowie's Modern Love make it into the record?
I have. There's a moment where David does one of those Heroes, or I don't remember, one of that era, maybe kind of the Station to Station era, where he just lets out, but it's one of his hits, and he just lets out this roar, this operatic roar. And so, in the church, in our song To the Church, I just had this perfect moment to do that, and it's hysterical, and it's in there, and it's really beautiful. I mean, it feels completely necessary at that moment to like crescendo this trippy like maelstrom of sound that's been going on for all. It's that's a song where you push how long you can just kind of send trippy stuff into the speakers, and so that one's kind of pushing a pop structure to your patience maybe. But and that just a crescendo moment there with I channeled old David Bowie. God, it's great. I love this record so much. I just listen to it all the time. I just put my fat headphones on and I just crank it up in bong major, and it just it's like everything: salvation, open-mindedness, redemption, love, loss. It's just everything's in there for me. It's sonically just like the best work we've ever done. It's just such a freaky and emotionally and powerful experience, but it's tweaky and clattery and rich, and it's something else, man.
I mean, there's not been a Dandy Warhols record that I've ever disliked, ever. I love what you all do every single time, and this one's been an exciting first listen.
Oh, great, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for give me the ins and outs of it all. Good luck with the ankle.
Yeah, I gotta get that thing together. I was walking down a dark driveway on New Year's Eve, and there's a hole in the driveway, and so I went ahead and twisted my ankle pretty badly in it. So I gotta get. Apparently, it takes 3 weeks and to heal a sprained ankle, and in 3 weeks I get on a plane to go tour Europe for 9 days or so.
Perfect timing.
I better get on with X-rays, therapies, and whatever else. And, I don't know, acupuncture, whatever I got to do right now. Like literally get in the car and do it.
All right, Courtney. Well, thanks again for the talk, and hopefully I'll catch one of these shows out there, man.
Yeah, cool. All right, thanks, Kyle, man.
Take care.
See you later.
Bye. Hey, my thanks to Courtney Taylor-Taylor of the Dandy Warhols, the new record, Why You So Crazy. And hey, if you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button. Again, we put up multiple interviews every single week. Would love to keep you up to date on all of those. You can subscribe at YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts and iTunes and Acast and Podchaser. Really, wherever you're listening to this right now, there's probably a subscribe button in front of you. After that, please do head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern, where you can also find some bonus episodes of this series. Of course, you can stay up to date at consequenceofsound.net. You can find me at Twitter at Kyle Merdith, Facebook /Kyle Merdith. That does it for this episode. I'm Kyle Merdith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.